Good morning. Welcome to Authentic Woman Podcast. I'm Amy Cummings, the host and owner of Cummings Coaching, here to share with you today a topic that I feel like is part of our everyday life and and learning the skill of how to pivot with grace and resilience is something we need, and we get tested with it regularly. um, yes, so I'm a coach for Christian women who want to bring their unique and authentic selves courageously to the world, doing work that they love to do and were created to do, in order that they might have live from a place of abundant contribution. And the goal is helping women to integrate their whole self into their lives and into their work and into their roles as wife, mother, daughter, aunt, grandmother, whatever the role is, the roles are that you carry. And so pivoting with grace. So I'm just going to share an example with you that just happened this morning and is actually ongoing. So, a speaker was supposed to come into town today to speak this evening, that we hired to bring in for a parish, to do a parish mission. And all flights out of New Orleans were canceled this morning because of intense fog there. And so she's like, I can't get there. Like, she could probably take a later flight today, but getting into Minneapolis and then the 2-hour drive to the venue. And so it just wasn't going to happen. So, being women of solution and pivoting with grace required us to, how can we solve this situation and still serve our client and bring a hopeful message during this Advent season to the parish that she was going to be going to. So we are pivoting. We're going to do a talk via Zoom. Have her zoom into the parish, and it will be different, but it'll still be good. It'll still be good, and it'll still be an opportunity. And instead of getting, bent out of shape about it, getting frustrated, being, angry at the airlines or angry at anybody else, it was just like we move into solution. And that's what I want to help you with today. I have 6 very simple step process that I do for myself when I am in these moments of having to pivot with grace, and also how I help my clients learn this new skill so they too can really live from a place of responding instead of reacting to these moments of pivoting. I first want to talk about just the words pivoting and grace. So, dictionary.com says the definition of pivoting is the action of turning around a point to turn or rotate, to shift. And grace is elegance or beauty of form, manner, motion, or action. So, the beauty of that, right? So, turning or moving or finding a new strategy and doing that with grace and beauty and patience and joy, and without disrupting our peace. And all of these moments of pivoting, they can be big and small. I mean, they can be as simple as you forgot to take the meat out of the freezer for dinner tonight. When you get home from work, it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to take hamburger out. I forgot to take chicken out, whatever you had planned to have for dinner. So we're going to probably have to have a different meal, right? Maybe your husband might be able to pick up dinner on the way home. Maybe you're going to have mac and cheese. Maybe it's not the most healthy choice, but you're going to pivot and go, we can make another choice for dinner tonight. So that might be a small one. Maybe a child spikes a fever in the middle of the night, And so you know that they're not going to be able to go to daycare or to school tomorrow. And so having to decide, okay, what is my plan going to be for tomorrow so that I can take care of my primary responsibility of being a mom? And is that mom staying home? Is that dad staying home? Is it, do you have plans, a backup plan for someone to care for your children when they get sick and can't go? But just pausing and not having any, anger, resentment, or blame, and peacefully make a decision and move on. Or maybe your husband's running late and he forgot that you had an evening commitment. And so, and he was supposed to be, making dinner and helping out with the children so you could get to maybe it was a Zoom meeting, or maybe it was a manicure appointment, or maybe it was your book club. And so again, you could get frustrated, you could blame, you could go to a place of, oh, my life doesn't matter because he didn't make this a priority or hear me when I said that, I have an appointment this evening. And so, could you be home by a particular time? So you could do those things, right? But they don't serve anybody well. Um, they actually damage probably relationships more than they help. And so instead, for me, I think, well, in what ways maybe have I forgotten? I forget too sometimes, or don't pay attention to the clock and get a little behind. So giving grace to the person who is requiring you now to pivot. And then looking at the problem, like, so what is the problem? Children need to be fed, etc. So, and then moving towards solution. And before, I would say for me, I I did a lot of blaming when I had to pivot, or I would complain about the pivoting, or be upset with the problem, or why do I have to solve it? And in this past year of working deeply on myself and growing as a woman, as an authentic woman, being a woman who um, strives for wholeness, this is one of the areas that I knew I needed to grow in. And so it's through the work and the skills that I've learned at the woman's school that I've been able to pivot with grace and resilience and have those moments of going, did that well. Like, but feeling really proud of the moment that I didn't slip back into old habits or old ways of doing things. Now, this doesn't mean it happens every minute, every time. Because sure enough, something comes up and I do get upset about it still. And then I'm like, oh, let me stop. Sometimes I catch myself and regroup and recalibrate and try and finish out the situation with grace. And, just some other examples. Maybe you're preparing for a presentation and, or maybe you're giving a presentation, I guess, and the speaker ahead of you went long on his or her time. So now you're going to have to pivot to make up the time or cut out content or cut out some of your presentation, right? And that's going to be done on the fly. And being able then to get up and give that presentation, being present for the people that you were brought in to speak to, and contributing your highest self to that moment. And it's in the small moments of pivoting that when those large moments come, we have the skill to do them. We have the skill to make a different choice. And it's important to master these skills. There are certainly times that pivoting um, can take longer than that. So, like, moving to a new job or moving to a new home, or, having adding a baby to your family. Those are going to require a different set of skills that is more than pivoting. So pivoting to me is this, with grace, is really these moments of just come at you from nowhere, really. Like we didn't plan that the speaker couldn't get in this morning. We didn't plan, I didn't plan, this happened to me the other day. My lights went out while doing a Zoom call. my spotlight. So I'm like, oh my goodness. I looked and I'm like, oh, lights out. Oh, forgot to plug it into the power source. So the battery went dead, but just like, okay, fix it and plug it back in. And these and also another example is picking up the phone, you're talking to a client and you expected a positive response for them and maybe you got a negative response, or maybe they asked you a question you weren't prepared for, or maybe they asked you for a payment plan instead of paying in full for your services. These are opportunities to pivot with grace, and it's in these moments, as people see us pivot with grace, that they will say, I want what she has. How is she doing that without getting upset? How is she handling that interruption again, with patience and grace? And it's because two things: you're learning a skill and you're rewiring a script in your mind that says you can pivot with grace, or the world happens for me, not to me, right? Things happen for me, not to me. Or um, I celebrate pivoting and that I have the skill set to pivot. So what do we say to ourselves when that moment arises? So let me talk about the 6 steps and then break it down just a little bit for you as we chat together a little bit more about this pivoting with grace. Um, the steps are pretty simple. I mean, 6 steps sounds like a lot of steps to actually pivot, but they're very important steps. Each one of them is very important. So, because we want to have a different response and we want to teach ourselves a different way of approaching life in this situation, step number 1 is get clear on the problem or the challenge or the disruption, and removing any blame, shame, or frustration. So, what is the situation? Situation is we need to have a speaker at this event tonight. How are we going to make that happen? That's the situation. Or we need to have dinner tonight and the hamburger is still frozen. Or someone didn't meet a deadline. Maybe a graphic artist didn't meet a deadline. So what are we going to do? The graphic designer can't meet the deadline. That's the problem, right? So that's the situation, that's the challenge that's in front of you. And then pause. This step, the pause, is worth millions. Not only in pivoting with grace, but in so many other situations in life. Just to pause, take a deep breath. So you've identified the problem. You're pausing, taking a deep breath. And then number 3 is be grateful. So many things to be grateful for. Be grateful that you have this skill to pivot with grace. Be thankful that you have resources to solve problems. Be thankful that you have a community you can call on, or a family to help you pivot. Gratitude literally changes how we think about a situation. And so being grateful, just say, you know what? I am so grateful that, my mom lives down the road from me and can take the baby tomorrow, who isn't feeling well. And then number 4, a new mindset thought. So this is the scripts. This is where your scripts come in. So what are you saying in your head about the situation? So if you're like, oh, I'm still frustrated, I'm upset, and why can't they figure this out? And, why did this become my problem? All of those negative things, they are not serving you well. So we want to have a positive mindset. And one that I use all the time in these situations is I'm a woman of solution. I'm a woman of solution. Doesn't matter what problem is thrown at me, I'm a woman of solution. That doesn't mean I solve the problem necessarily all by myself and, rah is me and tough woman. No, it's I'm a woman of solution. And sometimes the solution might be to bring in other people to help me find an answer to the problem and to pivot with me. So I'm a woman of solution, or I pivot with grace, or life happens for me, not to me. Those are all examples of new mindsets, new thoughts, positive thoughts that you can use in these moments of pivoting. And number 5 is make a plan. Think about it, 2 to 3 minutes, not even. Sooner than that, you can come up with 2 or 3 solutions in most cases, and then consider your options. So, these are the options. And then 6 is take action. Take action on a solution. It's the best solution that you could think of, and you take action on it. And it's important for this to become just automatic for you in moments of challenge and having to pivot. So situation is presented to you, you get clear on it. So ask enough questions to know what the problem is, right? Or the challenge of the situation, if it's not super evident, right? Second, pause. For me, it's pause and call on the Holy Spirit. Third is be grateful. Thank you, Lord, that I'm a woman of solution and we can find answers together to this problem. And then say to yourself, I'm a woman of solution. I sometimes have to say it out loud so that I believe it and hear it. I'm a woman of solution. And then, okay, what are our options? As an example with our speaker situation for tonight, could she get another flight? Could she Zoom in and do the meeting, over Zoom? Could we find a local speaker to go in and do the meeting? So like, what are all of our possible solutions? Can we reschedule, right? And then look at that plan. Here are our options, and then consider them, and then move forward with an action item. Take action. To let the problem just fester isn't good either. And in most cases, we don't have time for that. Children need to be fed, you know. My light needed to be turned back on for my Zoom meeting. Just all of these things still need to happen in our lives. And then it's important as you reflect at the end of your day, how were you successful in this skill of pivoting with grace? How many times were you successful in doing it? What did you learn from those moments? And then celebrating that you're becoming a new person, a new woman, and that all of us should be working towards becoming a new version of ourselves, designing the woman that God wants us to be, and working on these different skills in order to design that woman, to design and become that woman who's fully alive, who lives from a place of abundance and has so much to give, who's not depleted, who's present, who's always present wherever she is. I like to say, be where my feet are, right? So if I'm, sitting down with a girlfriend having a cup of coffee, I am present there for her. If I'm with my husband having breakfast, I'm present for him. And there's lots of skills and lots of tools that we can teach you, that I can teach you in our coaching sessions to help you to become that woman, to be present, to live from a place of abundance, to pivot with grace, to manage overwhelm, to get clear on your dreams and goals. And these are all skills. If you, and I also just want to say, give yourself permission to fail. For most of us, we have been handling these situations in our lives um, without the right tools. We were maybe never taught how to handle, how to pivot with grace. Maybe it was never modeled to us. Maybe we thought there's a different way to do it, but we just didn't know how. So give yourself grace and give yourself permission. You're going to fail sometimes, but pick yourself up, dust off, and try again. And you're like, and know that within you, you have the tools and the mindset and the desire to do it differently and to be that witness to your colleagues, to your siblings, to your spouse, to your children. So this little technique, 6 steps: clear on the problem, pause, be grateful, new mindset, a moment of solution, make a plan, what are my options, and then take action. And this will help you to smoothly move from that moment of interruption, disruption, challenge, problem into a moment of grace, solution, and moving forward. If you are at all interested, you're listening to this live or a replay of it, and you want to have a dream session with me to talk about how this skill or any other skill could make a difference in your life, or you want to move skill up in your business, you want to design that woman that God is calling you to be, and you don't even know what the first steps are to do that, I would love to have a conversation with you. You can direct message me or head over to my website, cummingscoaching.org, and drop me a note there. Have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Stay warm out there, and we'll see you next week.